Hello and welcome to the Mr. Spreadsheet YouTube channel. If you would like to create and design your own inventory management system using Excel spreadsheets, then this short tutorial will show you how. The inventory management spreadsheet will record inventory transactions and will monitor inventory levels, inventory valuations, and product line profitability. The final template is both easy to use and to understand. The inventory management spreadsheet will use many of Excel's functions and commands, including the use of drop-down boxes to select data. We employ the SUMIF command and retrieve data using the Vlookup function. We also use if commands to isolate data and introduce the CONCATENATE and the MID commands to perform advanced data selection routines. As usual, I will show you how to obtain a copy of the completed template later on in this video. And if you need any help on the Excel functions that I've used, then please do leave me a comment below. I hope you enjoy watching. Open up a new workbook and we will start our inventory management system by entering our first 10 products. Select cell C3 and enter code, and in D3 enter description. In cells C4 through to D13, copy in my product codes and descriptions. Alternatively, enter data more suited to your needs. Now highlight the range C4 through to D13 and from the Formulas ribbon select the Define Name tool and enter the name Products and then click OK. Our inventory management system needs to record details of inventory purchases and the cost of those purchases. So let's expand the table to accommodate these. In cell E3, enter purchase quantity. In F3, it's purchase cost. And in G3, we need the average cost. Now we need to include details of our sales quantities and sales values. So enter sales quantity in cell H3 and sales value in I3. We would also like to calculate our profits for each inventory item. So enter profit in cell J3. Our final two columns in this table will record the running or cumulative inventory quantities and inventory valuations for each product line. Okay, now that we have our inventory management table created, let's apply some formatting and give the table a heading. Select the range C3 through to D3 and apply a background color of green. Select the range E3 through to G3 and apply a background color of mid-green. Select the range H3 through to I3 and color this mid-blue. J3 is colored mid-orange and K3 through to L3 is colored mid-gray. Now make bold the entire range from C3 through to L3 and change the font color of C3 through to D3 to white. Highlight the range C3 through to L3 and from the Home ribbon select the Borders tool and apply all borders. Highlight the range C2 through to L2 and use the Merge and Center tool and enter Inventory Management as the heading. Increase the font size and apply a background color of light green. Highlight the range E4 through to G13 and apply a background color of light green. The range H4 through to I13 becomes light blue. J4 through to J13 is light orange, and K4 through to L13 becomes light grey. And finally, from the Page Layout ribbon, uncheck the View Grid Lines box to give our worksheet a crisp and clear background. Now that we have defined our inventory management table, we can now create a new table to record our inventory purchases and our inventory sales. We will create this inventory movements table in the next session. We will create our inventory movements table by selecting cell C18 and entering in the name Code. D18 becomes Description, E18 is Type, F18 is Price, G18 becomes Quantity, and H18 is the transaction value. Highlight the range C18 through to H18 and apply a background colour of green and a font colour of white, and then make bold. Select the range C18 through to H28, and from the Home ribbon, select the Borders tool and apply all borders. Now let's give this table a title. Highlight the range C17 through to H17 and merge and center these cells, and then enter the title as shown. Increase the font size and then make bold. Let's enter our first inventory transaction. Enter the product code of W101 in cell C19. We would like the description in cell D19 to populate automatically. We can do this by using Excel's Vlookup function. You will recall that earlier in this video we gave the range C4 through to D13 a name. We called this range Products, and we'll now use this range to help us with our Vlookup command. So, with D19 selected, type in the formula equals Vlookup, open brackets, point to cell C19, comma, enter the word Products, comma, then a 2, a comma, the word false, and now close the brackets. The correct description of widgets grey is retrieved from the second column of the products table. Navigate to cell E19. We want the value in this cell to be either purchase or sale. We can use Excel's data validation tool to achieve this. With E19 still active, select the data ribbon and then pick up the data validation tool. From the dialog box that opens, choose List from the Allow field, and in the Source field, type in Purchase, followed by a comma, followed by Sale with no spaces, and now click OK. Cell E19 now contains a drop-down box, from which you can choose which type of transaction this is. Please select Purchase. We can now complete our first transaction line. Enter a price of 15 and a quantity of 10 in cells F19 and G19. Our transaction value is simply F19 multiplied by G19. So enter this formula into cell H19. Now let's copy our formulae down to the end of the inventory movements table. Highlight the range D19 through to E19, and now copy and drag down these formulae to the end of the table in row 28. Similarly, highlight cell H19 and copy and drag this down to H28. That's great. All the formulae in the inventory movements table have now been entered. However, all the description lines, apart from D19, are showing the NA error message. This is simply because the description field is totally dependent on there being a valid code in the code field. As all of these are currently blank, then the NA error message is returned. We can correct this by using a simple if statement in front of our Vlookup command in the description fields. This if statement will examine the contents of the code column, and if the column entry is blank, then the description will also return a blank. Select cell D19 and in the command line place your cursor after the equal sign and before the V of Vlookup, and then enter the following. If, open brackets, then point to cell C19, equals, inverted comma, followed by a comma, inverted comma again, followed by a comma, and then navigate to the end of the formula and add in a final closing brackets. Now, with C19 still highlighted, copy and drag down the new formula to D28. Hopefully, the error message now disappears. Finally, in this section, delete the contents of E20 to E28. The narrative hopefully disappears, but the drop-down boxes will still remain. Now, select the ranges F19 to F28 and H19 to H28 and format the number to 2 decimal places. In the next section, we will begin to update the inventory management table with the data entered in the inventory movements table. In order to create our formulae for the inventory management table, we need some transaction data in the inventory movement schedule. So please pause the video whilst you enter the additional 9 lines of data in the movements table, noting that sales quantities are recorded as negative values. Now select cell E4 and enter in the following formula. Equals SUMIF, open brackets, the word purchases followed by a comma, and then the command concatenate, open brackets, point to cell C4, enter a comma, then it's inverted comma, followed by a P, followed by inverted comma, close the brackets, then another comma, then the word quantity purchased, and now close the brackets. Ignore the name error message that this formula returns, and now I will explain all the elements of this formula and how it helps us to accurately complete our purchase quantity values. Our first formula in the inventory management table needs to collect all instances where there is a purchase of product W101 in the transaction table. Now, we can see that there are 5 transactions for product W101. Now, of these 5 transactions, 4 are purchases and 1 is a sale. Our purchase quantity formula only requires that we select the 4 purchases and that we ignore any sales transactions. Our formula, therefore, needs to select all instances where W101 is the product and the transaction type is purchase. We can achieve this by using a SUMIF command, which we have already entered in cell E4. But first of all, we need some way to identify the instances of purchases of product W101. Navigate to cell I19. We're going to create a formula that specifically identifies and matches products with their transaction type. So enter the following formula into cell I19. Equals, concatenate, open brackets, point to cell C19, enter a comma, and then the command MID, open brackets, point to E19, enter a comma, then a 1, then a comma, and then another 1, and then finally 2 closing brackets. The concatenate command says join the following criteria together to form a single string. C19 refers to W101, and the command of mid open brackets E19, comma 1, comma 1, close brackets, says examine the contents of cell E19, which in our case is equal to the word purchase. And from the word purchase, return the first character, which equals P. Concatenate or join these two together and you get the string W101P. We now have correctly analysed the contents of the two cells and created a unique code for it, which will help us in the SUMIF command. Now let's copy this formula down from I19 all the way down to the end of the table in I28. Each line picks up the relevant product code and then adds either a P or an S to it. This now makes our use of the SUMIF command a lot easier, as we now have a unique criteria range from which to aggregate our purchase quantity data. Our selection range of I19 to I28 needs to be given a name so that the SUMIF command can pick up the correct values. So highlight I19 through to I28 and give this a name by selecting the Define Name command from the Formulas ribbon. Enter the name Purchases and click OK. The second element of the SUMIF command in cell E4 of the Inventory Management table is the criteria W101 in cell C4. But we need this W101 to match a corresponding value from our purchases in the range I19 to I28. All of these will return the extended values of W101 plus either an S or a P. So, returning to our formula in cell E4, we need to join together or concatenate the value in C4, which is W101, and the letter P. Finally, in the SUMIF command, we need to identify and name the quantity purchased range. This is in fact the range G19 through to G28. So highlight this range and from the Formulas ribbon, select the Define Name tool and enter quantity purchased with no spaces in the name field, and now click OK. Hopefully your SUMIF command is now showing a value of 51, which is the aggregate value of all the items shown in the orange cells in the Inventory Movements table. Please don't worry if you do not get the entire process right on your first attempt. The process is quite advanced, but once mastered, it will prove an invaluable technique going forwards. Let's use a similar formula to calculate the cost of all of our purchases of product W101. We will use the SUMIF command again and pick up all the relevant values in the Inventory Movements table. But first, let's name the transaction value range. So highlight cells H19 to H28 and select the Formulas ribbon. From here, choose the Define Name command and use the name of Cost of Purchases without any spaces and click OK. Navigate back to cell F4 and enter in the following formula: equals SUMIF, open brackets, the word purchases, then a comma, then the command concatenate, open brackets, point to C4, inverted comma, followed by a P and then another inverted comma, and close the bracket. Then another comma, and then the word cost of purchases, and close the bracket. Cell F4 should populate with 646.00, which is the aggregate value of all purchases of product W101. The average unit cost of purchases of product W101 is simply F4 divided by E4. So enter this formula into cell G4. This returns a rather ugly looking value to 6 decimal places. And we also know that if there was no value in the purchase quantity field, this formula would return a divided by 0 error. So let's correct both of these. Firstly, change the formula in E4 to read if, open brackets, E4 equals 0, comma, then a 0, then a comma, and then F4 divided by E4 and close the brackets. Now, if we have a nil value in E4, the formula does not return an error message. Now let's add the round down command, such that our previous formula in G4 is nested with round down set to 2 decimal places. The entire formula now reads equals round down, open brackets, if, open brackets, point to E4 equals 0, comma, then a 0, then another comma, and then plus F4 divided by E4 and close the brackets, and then finally a comma and then 2 and close the final bracket. Our sale quantity uses exactly the same formula as our purchase quantity formula. The only difference being that instead of using a P for purchase, we use an S for sale. So enter the formula as follows: equals minus SUMIF, open brackets, purchases, comma, concatenate, open brackets, point to C4, comma, then inverted comma, then S, then inverted comma, and close the brackets, then a comma, and then quantity purchased, and close the brackets. The table returns the aggregate sales quantity extracted from the inventory movement schedule. We can do exactly the same for our sale value. The formula becomes equals minus SUMIF, open brackets, purchases, comma, concatenate, open brackets, point to cell C4, comma, inverted comma, S, inverted comma, close the brackets, comma, and then cost of purchases, and close the brackets. Hopefully the formula will return the value of 300, which is the aggregate value taken from the inventory movement schedule. The aggregate profit formula in cell J4 is simply the total sales value in I4 less the sales quantity multiplied by the average cost. So in J4, enter equals plus I4 minus, open brackets, point to G4 times point to H4 and close the brackets. The correct profit figure of 110.10 is returned. Our cumulative inventory quantity is the total purchase quantity less the total sales quantity. So enter the formula equals plus 4 minus H4 into cell K4, and our cumulative inventory valuation is simply the inventory quantity in cell K4 multiplied by the unit average cost in G4. So enter the formula equals K4 times G4 into cell L4. Hopefully the values of 36 and 455.76 are returned. Now that we have entered all our formulae for the first product, W101, we can now apply these formulae to the remaining 9 products. So highlight the range E4 through to L4 and copy and drag the contents down to row 13. That's great. It all seems to be working fine. Let's complete our work by adding a few totals, applying various cell formats, and hiding or deleting unwanted data or values. Let's have some totals for total purchase cost, total sales value, total profit, and total inventory valuation. Select cell F15 and then simply double-click the AutoSum tool. Select cells I15, J15, and L15 and repeat the AutoSum command. Now highlight the ranges F4 through to G13, I4 through to J13, and L4 through to L13, and then right-click your mouse. Select the Format Cells option and then the Numbers tab, and then Number, and then set these to 2 decimal places with the 1000 comma separator checked. Finally, highlight the range I19 through to I28 and change the font color to white, such that these values are now hidden. Use the Format Painter tool to change the background colors of our total fields and then make these bold. And finally, apply some alternate line formatting to our inventory movements table. And that completes our design work. We now have a fully functioning inventory management system, which we hope will be of use to both you and your business. We do hope that you enjoyed our inventory management spreadsheet tutorial and that there was lots of content that you found both useful and informative. Now, if you would like us to send you a copy of the completed template, then please give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Alternatively, please visit one of our channels on either Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Now, if you are a small business and you want to keep your business accounts records in Excel, then why not watch our accounting spreadsheet tutorial? Alternatively, why not take a look at our How to Keep Inventory in Excel video? This popular tutorial shows you how to create a more basic inventory management tool.